The best zombie takeout is the kind that awakens the soul, the kind that makes you reach for more.
What's up? Welcome to episode 238 of Zombie Takeout,
Zombie takeout.
the B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, a little bit of listener submitted, actually quite a bit. Starting off with Bruce Sardi on Facebook in reference to last week's episode. He said, I see do all the Star Treks in a row. No respite for Scotto. That was actually part of the initial deal that we don't do them all in a row. You wanted to break them up.
You know, doing 2 through 6 in a row isn't that big a deal.
Mhm.
In fact, it's kind of cool. I mean, the way they play into each other,
Mhm.
like almost like they're one long movie.
Well, I
With
mean, we can alter the deal from this point on.
With some
If you
deviation
want.
in 5, of course, but like 2, 3, and 4 is as tight a trilogy as any other movie trilogy ever
Yeah.
because it goes from one end to the other.
Particularly 2 and 3.
Yeah.
3 picks
Well,
up
you
right
can
after 2.
And 4 too. 4
Okay.
picks up
It's been a
right
while.
after that.
All right.
There isn't a heartbeat miss there. But no, we'll draw
separate
it
them.
out a bit.
All right.
We'll do it like we haven't determined how often we're going to do a Star Trek,
It's up
but
to you. It was your deal.
we probably should put one at the end of the list
Mhm.
that we
Okay.
have now. Since
Okay,
we've
we'll
got
add Con there.
we have a pretty impressive list of movies. We'll throw Con in.
Okay, John Phillips also on Facebook in reference to last week's episode said, I think this was the first film I ever saw in a theater and fell asleep during it. Nowadays I can watch it no problem. Was there CGI in the movie? I know they did some for the director's cut a few years ago, but it was so-so because they limited themselves to what would have been possible in 79. And maybe it was the director's cut on Netflix, but
Maybe.
all of the sort of lightning-looking effects that they used for the clouds for V'ger's energy weapon were CG, clearly because it looked like Tron.
I think the most egregious use of CGI in that movie was the wormhole.
Yeah.
That was and it was awful.
Also,
Oh my God.
the V'ger's scanner on the ship.
Yes.
For a second there, when you said most egregious use of CGI, I was waiting for you to say Shatner's toupee. All right. Danny Meeks on Google Plus, also in reference to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, said, Uncle John definitely needs to go back and finish off Star Trek Enterprise because the last 2 seasons are the best Star Trek seasons made out of all of the Star Trek series.
Agreed.
It finally gets its footing and gets closest to what a new Star Trek series would be like today by getting away from the episodic format and into continuing season-long story arcs. That sounds very interesting.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they did. Yeah.
The Xindi story arc in the 3rd season is some of the best sci-fi TV ever. That's a hell of a claim. The 1st and 2nd seasons weren't that bad, especially compared to the first 2 seasons of TNG. Tonight's movie wasn't that bad compared to the 1st season of TNG. I'm with Scotto.
Whoa, no.
I'm being
That's
facetious.
taking it too far.
I'm being facetious. Okay, Last Airbender wasn't bad compared to the first season of TNG.
Really?
I hated the first season of TNG.
But you hated Airbender so much more.
He also says, I'm with Scotto as far as it being my favorite Star Trek iteration. It was canceled as soon as it was hitting an awesome stride, and that's a shame. You mentioned best sci-fi TV ever. I'm assuming he's seen Firefly. So that's a hell of a claim.
Also, I mean, it's why I like Deep Space Nine because they were bringing Star Trek into the story arc versus the episodic, which is what I was trying to say in my half-sleepy brain last week about how they told stories in the Next Generation. How you would hear something about Worf, and then 6 episodes later they would pick up Worf's story again. But in the interim, he would just be in the background doing whatever. And just contributing contributing a little bit to the episode and to somebody else's story.
Ironically, those are the two Star Trek series that I haven't seen in full, DS9 and Enterprise. So I guess I really do need to, finish them.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, especially considering they're on Netflix anyway. Although is Enterprise going to be on Netflix much longer?
I don't know. I checked tonight. It's still there. I didn't see an expiration date,
Okay.
so hopefully it will be, or I'll get to it soon.
And a story did surface, but I think it was not factual. Shortly after we recorded,
That I
there
posted it that there actually isn't going to be a new series.
well, there was the rumor was going around about a Captain Worf show.
Oh, okay.
It actually
Makes
made
sense.
the rounds before somebody cleared it up. Like, no, 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 that story was from a while back,
Uh,
and it did not get greenlit.
yeah, and there's actually not going to be a new series, or at least not in currently in the works.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah. I was saying we're not going to see one until about 17, but I think what I was trying to explain about the rights was true.
Mhm.
That I mean, it's going to get handed back to, I believe, CBS.
Yeah. Ultimately, they own Star Trek. They're very tight-fisted with their properties. They own them as long as they can.
Right. They loaned it out to the movie, Bad Robot and whatever movie studios with him to make these movies. And I think after this movie, it goes back to them. So if they want to do more movies, they have to do some sort of other agreement.
You mentioned you being tired last week. I should mention, just in case it affects some of what I say, I am on 3 hours of sleep, so just bear that in mind tonight, or into the audience whenever you're listening to this. And one more little bit of a listener submitted. This is also from Danny Meeks on Google Plus in reference to the trailer for this week's movie. He said, "I swear this film is every woman's wet dream. I had to sit through this with my last girlfriend, and I had to keep from laughing while she cried like a baby."
I don't know. It's kind of a
I didn't find any moments to laugh because I was kind of encouraged when I read that comment because maybe it would be entertaining in some way and not in a humorous way.
yeah.
Anyway,
Talk about backfiring on
yeah,
us.
we should get to this week's movie, which
Yes.
is from 2004, The Notebook. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Ryan Gosling. Are you thinking about David Duchovny for your next movie, but worried that he'll just be too compelling? Then try Ryan Gosling. Same flat, uncharismatic acting, but with even less emotional range. Ryan Gosling. Cast him in your next project.
What's up, bad actors? And also brought to you by bourbon. It helps you make it through depressing, shitty movies.
I just want to say I got to give myself a little pat on the back here. I didn't tap out. Watched it in one sitting, stone cold sober.
I I
On
polished
three
off
hours of sleep, so that may have helped.
I
So maybe I
polished off
wasn't.
a bottle.
Yeah, yeah. I was on 3 hours of sleep, so maybe not stone cold sober.
Okay, so we begin with an old man reading a story to a woman in a nursing home. Then of course, we can't just hear him read because this is a movie. We have to see them. Unfortunately, at least Gosling is
Yeah,
somehow playing a young John Gardner,
yeah, and
James
there was some
Gardner.
photoshopping toward the end of the movie that really kind of made that look horribly silly. Because I was okay with it until they photoshopped young Garner into some pictures, and somehow then he was supposed to have somehow within like 10 years have gone from Gosling to Garner.
Now they make it look like it's this, it's supposed to be kind of a mystery as to who she chooses and everything, and what's going on. That it's actually them telling the story of themselves.
Yeah.
And the only thing that threw me from not figuring that out the first minute was that, well, that's fucking Gosling and that's James Garner. Why would one be the young version of the other?
They try to swerve you toward the end of the movie for a second and make you think she picked the other guy.
But anyway,
And I
yeah,
was so hopeful because that at least would have been surprising.
the story is just so cliche, that they tell each other. It's girl guy and a girl from the other opposite ends of the tracks. Um, the rich family forbids it. Um, winds up taking her back. They're on a vacation down south, and winds up taking her back home, and she winds up meeting another young suitor after they keep his letters from her to her, separated, and she's about to marry him, and when she finds out that this guy had been pining away for her for all these years in the first place, and she rushes down to meet him, and they get back together. She says no to the marriage to the other guy, and well, I normally say hilarity ensues, but then we get back to the nursing home,
Yeah.
and it's really where the real movie takes place more than anything else. And oof,
And not hilarity.
brutality
Yeah.
ensues.
Now, the opening of this movie was entirely too serene to watch Sleep Deprived.
I skipped. After a while, I was like, I'm not. I mean, this is
It's
okay.
the
Right off the bat,
really nice
this
shots of a pond, of a nice body of water, a river, whatever, with some sunsets and some very nice nature around. Beautiful. But watching it Sleep Deprived with this very mellow music almost put me out right there.
I mean, starting right off the bat here, this really suffered from a lot of the same problems last week's movie suffered,
Mm.
that somebody needed an editor.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no reason for this to go over 2 hours.
No, no, no.
None. Not even close. It was kind of crazy when I saw how long the movie was going for. I'm like, wait a minute. It was like 12 minutes in. It was kind of like, wait, how are they going to make this last for 2 fucking hours?
Now, literally, going in, all I knew about this was Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams' love story. Knew nothing
Yeah.
else about it. Garner and Rowlands were a nice surprise.
Yes. Yes,
And
they
their
were. And
scenes were
Sam
the only
Shepard, too.
and their scenes were the only enjoyable parts for me.
Yeah, same here.
Watching
Wow.
those two together was great.
Yeah, those two, I mean, if it were mostly centered around them, this would have probably been a lot better movie.
Oh yeah.
It would have been depressing as hell,
I'm fine. I like depressing.
but it would have been some great movie theater to watch.
Oh yeah. Of course, Gosling never fails to annoy me. I don't think I've ever liked him in anything. I don't know how he keeps getting cast. I made the crack about Duchovny in my sponsor, and I mean, I like Duchovny in certain things. Evolution,
Oh
at the top of
yeah,
the list. But
I don't
after
know.
this, actually, I kind of felt like Harry Block, Orlando Bloom's character in Evolution, after they took the fly out. He was asking for the ice cream. That's kind of how I felt, at the end of this movie. But I don't know. He can't act. I guess he gets hired for his looks. I guess I don't know.
I have seen him in something before. I had to look at his IMDb to see if I've actually seen anything. I've seen him in Lars and the Real Girl,
Okay, I've seen Drive. I think that
uh,
might have been the only thing I've seen him in.
and I did like Lars and the Real Girl.
Okay, I think I noticed that on Netflix. It looked kind of interesting. Drive I
Maybe
thought was
in our
horribly overrated.
wheelhouse.
Say again?
It may even be close to our wheelhouse actually,
Oh,
because
it
it's kind of.
sounds kind of like it.
I mean, it's a dude in a blow up doll, and he's treating it like it's
Well, a
his
real
girlfriend
doll, which is a whole nother
or
matter.
whatever. Let's
No,
say, doesn't matter the material of the doll.
uh, we won't get into that in this. I've got to say, Rachel McAdams though was really good, and maybe it's in contrast to Gosling. I don't know, but she hit it out of the park for me.
Yeah, she was pretty good, wasn't she?
Like about 15 minutes in, when they started on the backstory, the flashback, which is what
Yeah.
90% of this movie is, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's.
I kind of wasn't hating it.
There was wasn't there a Chevy Chase movie about him being a writer and him having like flashbacks and flash forwards and flash sideways? It was
Yeah.
just so heavy on device. And that's what this was. This was a really terrible script.
Yeah, because I wasn't hating the movie up until they get to what is called, to use the writer's term, the meet cute, when the two main characters meet.
Hmm.
Because he convinces her to go out with him by threatening to kill himself. She's on this Ferris wheel with some other guy, and he runs over, jumps in the cart with them. And then when the Ferris wheel operator yells up that, it's a safety violation to have, 3 people in the cart, he jumps up onto this crossbeam hanging 50 feet in the air, if not higher.
1940s security technology
Yeah.
is some big dude yelling, "Hey, you can't do that."
And then with one hand says, "Go out with me or I'll drop."
um, but yeah, the just so much hokedom there, and I mean, it's just really the script itself that just leaves them with this two-dimensional story.
And so they go out and he charms her by laying down in the road and having her do it and then almost getting them both killed.
Now, was there really any point to that scene?
Well, they needed something to kind of turn her around on him to get her to like him, and they chose that for some reason.
Well, I think they already had because she walked home with him
Yeah,
already.
yeah. She was starting to warm up, and they just needed that kick, and
Yeah.
somehow they chose that he almost got them both killed.
I think she thought it was funny because he was being all, "Oh yeah, we could do this," and
It
of
was the
course,
adrenaline rush, is why she
yeah,
was laughing.
and the car came, and
Hmm.
he was an idiot.
Yeah,
But and the whole thing about he's a simple Southern guy, but he reads Walt Whitman, and it's just, I mean, come on, guys,
Hmm.
really?
Incidentally, if I didn't dislike Gosling enough already, turns out he's kind of a method actor. He prepared for the role by living in Charleston, South Carolina for 2 months before filming and rowing the river and making furniture during the day. In fact, he made a table that was featured in the movie.
Huh? Okay.
It just seems a little unnecessary. I mean, if you're going to do that, at least get the accent down.
That could be a good title for this episode, actually. Unnecessary. Because, I mean, there was a lot of the backstory that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Um, and stuff that just didn't seem period appropriate. You know, a chick wearing a two-piece bathing suit in the
Yeah.
South
Yeah.
in the
Good point. That thing would have come
1940s.
down to her knees.
I mean, 1940. I mean, when was the bikini invented?
It was named after the Bikini Island, so it was invented around World War II,
But after though, right?
just probably shortly after.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been used in the South initially.
Right. I mean,
Would
there
not
there
have
was a
flown there at
lot.
all. Also, did the cars in that era have really bad brakes? Because they try to, add some drama by having people almost run over by cars that could have easily stopped in time. I mean, I don't know much. I don't know much about cars. Maybe they did have really bad brakes.
I don't know.
Although the movie did make me think that I should try reading poetry aloud because they use it to cure his stutter. Another unnecessary bit of information.
I thought you just say toy boat, toy boat, toy boat several times fast.
Hmm.
I nailed that too, motherfucker.
Yeah, he did. The thing about this movie is I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. It is the very definition of mediocrity.
Hmm.
Predictable story, but for the most part, well made and well acted, except for Gosling. Not just predictable, a bad story, but a good movie about with a bad story.
Right, I was gonna say I disagree because I hated this movie.
You hated it, okay?
Yes.
Because I liked most of the acting and it looked good.
I thought Gosling, was window dressing,
Yeah.
but the script it was just
Oh
hideous.
yeah, yeah.
Hideous.
Was it supposed to be a surprise, by the way, when the kids showed up at the nursing home and they turned out to be theirs?
I don't know.
Because they
And
treat that like a reveal.
right, that's one of the things I just couldn't figure out. Like, why was that so? Whoa, he has kids, and obviously they're hers. And why the fuck would they not tell her that they're her kids and try to bring some memories back?
Mm.
Because that's one thing I left out of the plot summary. If you haven't figured this out, she has dementia.
Yeah, they say dementia or possibly Alzheimer's. She can't
I
remember
think
who he
they
is.
said it was a form of dementia, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
you're right. You're right. They did.
And the deal was she wrote the story of themselves for him to read to her to try to bring
Uh-huh.
some of her back for just a bit.
Right.
And what a bunch of shitty kids they have. Dad, you should just leave her in the home alone and
Well,
come with us, stay with
and
us.
he wants to live in the home abandoning his family. There's no winner there.
Yeah, like what the fuck though? Would you really ask that of somebody? Like, yeah, what are you hanging out here for? Why don't you just come home? Why don't you just ditch this old bat
Well,
and
they
come
weren't talking
home
about
with
ditching her. They
us?
they did suggest taking turns visiting, but he was effectively living in the nursing home.
Well, yeah,
Now, also speaking of shitty behavior, when they meet up again 5 years later, because of course they have to separate and find each other again because that's in the rule book.
yeah,
She is engaged by this point,
right.
but shags Gosling and just completely blows off her fiance.
Well, right. She comes down just to like say hello and see if it's still there or not, between the two of them. And yeah, obviously she was, and
Hmm.
uh, it was kind of pointless to show.
Yeah, the sex scene was actually a bit more explicit than I was expecting. I mean,
I
there's a
Same
little bit
here.
of toplessness here and there, flashes, but the actual sex scene, you don't see anything, but it's a lot in the face and there's a lot of moaning. Although I will say, this movie might be the only time Gosling has been at all interesting to me when he got angry in the argument scene.
Well, like I
For,
said, you gotta see Lars and the Real Girl,
okay, I will. We probably should review it actually.
probably.
It's the only time he's been interesting. It's the only time he hasn't been flat, boring, emotionless, real doll.
Although, yeah, and now I'm thinking back, he wasn't all that emotional in Lars and the Real Girl either.
It's because it's
But,
not what he does, which is why that scene was interesting to me.
but that's what makes it more compelling, is because he's him in plastic. I mean,
Yeah. Now, incidentally, before director Nick Cassavetes, that name sounds so familiar, but I looked at his IMDb and I could not find anything I was familiar with. Spielberg, Cruise, and Timberlake were also attached to the project, but backed out. Now, Spielberg couldn't have done much more with this, I don't think.
who would Cruz have played in this? He's
That's my question. Was Cruise going to act in it, or was he gonna direct it? Was he maybe thinking of trying his hand at directing? Because they said before the director was attached.
I don't think he's directed anything else.
I don't
Oh,
think so, but maybe this was going to be his first. Same thing with Timberlake. Although, yeah, Timberlake's even a little too old to have played Noah.
no, I could have seen Timberlake do it. This was 10 years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, it would have worked, and he might have been better. He's not a bad actor, I have to admit.
Honestly, yeah, I can't see anything on here that I've seen Cassavetes
But the name is so
direct.
familiar. I mean, he was an actor, but I mean, he was kind of he was not a big name as an actor, so I'm surprised the name rings a bell so much.
Although it says he's known for Face Off.
Maybe that's why, because I was a fan of that movie back in the day. I haven't seen it in 15 years, probably.
He was an actor in Face Off.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at the picture. He didn't look familiar, so I can't think of anything he acted in either.
Yeah,
So, she ends up with the guy from the other side of the tracks who you knew she was going to end up with all along.
right. There is no there is no fake out of this
No.
movie.
They, like I said, they try to swerve you for a second that she picked the rich guy that she was engaged to. I was so hopeful because that would have been surprising.
I mean, it's a movie for people who don't pay any attention to details. Like, if you notice that he's reading out of, a notebook instead of an actual book, and it's no known story, that the story is obviously them,
Yeah.
and they're in the home, and obviously, I mean, it's pretty easy to pick out everything that's going on here.
Incidentally, I just realized there was a video I saw on YouTube. I saw the title of the 10 Things Wrong with the Notebook. I forgot to watch it before the review. I will post it with the episode, though. Might be kind of interesting. Now, okay, so we go back to the home, and she remembers for a few minutes. She kind of
Oh,
gets her
man.
memory back. And they say, the last time this happened, it was for no more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you knew it wasn't going to be the happy ending.
Well, right.
But when she goes back to the dementia, that got hard to watch.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was very hard to watch.
And not in the way that all of the Gosling scenes were hard to watch. It was very well done,
Right,
but it was
right.
painful
Oh yeah,
because she just completely flips out. Two nurses have to come in and physically restrain her while he backs off, and I think he started crying.
oh yeah.
And then they inject her, and then she's gone again. And then the ending happens. Well, you see him flipping through this scrapbook with pictures of his head photoshopped on other people.
And the big reveal that it is, in fact, that written by her, for
Yeah.
her to read to him. And it's like, oh, I couldn't have figured that one out.
Uh-huh. And it's pictures of Garner when he's maybe 10, 15 years older than Gosling is in the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that transition happened. And then they, fall asleep together and die. They had established that he has a heart condition earlier in the
Well, yeah, yeah.
She finally gets her memory back, and I think didn't she come back briefly at the very end, right before?
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they die. I don't know if that end was touching or trite.
That was very trite.
You go with trite, yeah. I think
Yeah.
it probably was.
Because, I mean, come on. It doesn't really happen that way, I mean,
Of course.
there's always one that outlives the other.
Hmm.
Statistically speaking, at least. I mean, the odds of going together in your sleep at the same time,
Oh yeah,
but natural causes.
it's unrealistic, but everything
Yeah.
about the movie is unrealistic.
Yeah, that the dude would just hold on, after not hearing back from her for how many years?
I think it was only like 5 years.
Only 5 years, really?
Well, I could see maybe still being hung up after 5 years.
After going through, like, the unnecessary World War II scenes and everything?
Yeah, he ends up fighting in World War II.
They have some explosions just to make sure we're still awake in the audience.
His best friend, who we met in a few scenes earlier, who was
That's right.
the
They kill him
son
off. That's
from
really.
Unhappily Ever After.
I was wondering why he looked familiar. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was him.
He gets killed off, of course, because we were apparently supposed to care about him.
Right. It was like, oh, the guy from the first few scenes died.
Yeah. So, but Gosling comes back. Noah comes back completely unscathed. Not just physically, but psychologically from a war. Back to his old self. Buys the house that he'd been saving for. No, his father bought it for him. That was it.
Yeah. Sam Shepard, of course, who was a pleasant surprise,
Hmm.
but underused.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In
All of the
fact,
good actors in this movie were underused, with the possible exception of Rachel McAdams. And again, I can't tell if it's that she was good or that she was just good in comparison to Gosling.
Sam Shepard's character was so underused that when they killed him off, they didn't even show it or lead up to it. It was just when Dad died.
Mhm.
I was like, wait, what? It was this character that was that we had more endearment towards than his friend.
Yeah.
Him being nice and inviting her in and making pancakes and stuff at night, and then just like and selling the house for him and all that. Like,
Yeah.
he does all this great shit, and like, wow, finally a stand-up dude. And then just like, when my dad died, and then like nothing showing about it.
Yeah. So no sequels and remakes, thankfully, because there's no possible sequel to this.
You could really make a clinic on this from this movie. What not to do when writing a script.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah.
It's that bad.
On the brains.
Onto brains.
This, in certain ways, kind of reminded me of Glitter, in that if I was in the right demographic, I would have liked it, but I'm not.
That's true. This movie is not for us.
So I'm going to give it the same rating, too.
Oh. I'm giving this a brain just for pretty much just for the scene where she comes back and then gets lost. That is the only thing you need to see from this entire 2-hour experience.
I think both of my brains were the Rollins and Garner scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that stuff's worth watching. In fact, if you'd want to see it, just skip everything else. Just watch the scenes with Jenna Rollins and James Garner. Worth it for those scenes.
That is very true. There isn't that much story here. You could easily edit this down just to that.
Mhm.
Maybe a few flashes of their flashback.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that it was the entire movie is just ridiculous.
Oh, if somebody out there can edit, I mean, I can, but I'm not going to invest my time for this. But if somebody else out there has the free time and wants to, wants an interesting project, do the ideal edit of this movie. Just the Rollins and Garner scenes with a few flashes of McAdams and Gosling with just music over top of it.
And then put like the scene with Darth Maul fighting Obi-Wan and oh, I can't remember his name from
Qui-Gon.
Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon, yeah.
Yeah, just randomly throw that in.
Yes, please.
Yeah, a dogfight scene from some World War II movie.
It's yeah, instead of the stupid World War II scene, because that was the other thing that pissed me off. This had too high of a budget
Yeah.
than was needed. You know, it was just the whole thing of this movie is it's bloated. It's a very simple and sweet story, not very inventive, but you just tell it in a straightforward way. This probably be more better as a play, a stage play, than a movie.
And if this was an hour and a half, I might have gone up to 2.5 or 3.
Oh, I definitely would have gone up, if this were just an hour and a half. Same with last week's movie. I would have gone up some. But yeah, no need to torture your audience.
No. I think they were just trying to crowbar as much Gosling in as they could for the target demo.
That's exactly what happened here.
All right, so what have we learned?
For fuck's sake, just because you can stretch a 20-minute story into a 2-hour movie doesn't mean you should.
And I learned that James Garner can make even the most mediocre, predictable chick flick considerably more tolerable.
Oh, God. I'm just like, oh, no. It's like...
I mean, over the years, since Space Cowboys, I've become more and more of a fan of Garner. But after this, he's fucking Olivier to me.
He's done a lot of shitty movies where you go in and you're still entertained, though, because it's James Garner. Like the movie Tank.
Yeah, good point.
No reason to watch the movie Tank, but James Garner's in it.
Actually, an alternate recommendation. I don't, normally do these, but if you want something with Garner, My Fellow Americans, Garner, Jack Lemmon as former presidents, great movie.
Right, I think I remember that one too. Yeah.
All right, so until next time, when we'll be reviewing Invasion of the Body Snatchers, continuing our two-part tribute to Leonard Nimoy, which unfortunately had to be interrupted by this shit.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. You'll also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed and every movie we're going to review. Up through, I don't remember, but it's probably about 5 or 6 after this. We've got a nice request run coming up after the tribute.
Body Snatchers, Cabin in the Woods, Polyester, if we can find it, Ghoulies, and then Wrath of Khan.
And then Wrath. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. Nothing with Ryan Gosling, please, except maybe Larger Than Real Doll.
I think, well, as far as like the non-wheelhouse movies, I think this should end it.
Yeah.
I think
we've crossed the line with this one.
I think we did. It got real.
And of course, the recommendations list. What he said. I had said before we started recording that wouldn't it have been funny if we actually liked it?
That would have been pretty damn funny.
Yeah. No way.
Oh boy.
You can also email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTL1, or for the alphanumerically challenged pause, I have one this week. You can go watch a Ryan Gosling film. 368-9861.
I think next year maybe we should do Philadelphia.
Well, that's a great movie, actually.
Well, I mean, the year before we did
Beaches.
We said we were going to do Beaches, which is cancer. This year's dementia.
And then AIDS.
Next year we do AIDS. All the good jokes,
Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
You're leaving. I'm staying here. And I'm so happy that you're doing that.
April
Hey,
Fools. Yeah, I think we actually kind of pranked ourselves this time.
we what the fuck were we doing, man? We
See,
we got so meta.
the plan was, well, we had another idea we were gonna pull this year, but we came up with it, or I came up with it, and we talked about it about a couple months ago, and everything was fine until time got away from us, and it was like 2 weeks till April Fools, and we didn't have time to do that plan. Possibly next year.
Yeah, maybe.
So I had the idea of either skip April Fool's Day completely, just ignore it, or do something incredibly out of our wheelhouse, like Beaches, except this time we actually review it. You liked that idea.
Yeah. And then 10 minutes into the movie, I felt like Foghorn Leghorn, where it was just like, I don't want to look in that hole. I just might be in there.
And Mrs. Scotto suggested The Notebook, Steel Magnolias, and Dirty Dancing. You had suggested Merchant Ivory. I vetoed Merchant Ivory because we might actually want to review them. I remember liking Merchant Ivory back in the day.
Yeah, but it's not in our wheelhouse.
Eh, we could argue. Actually, this one supposedly has a cult following. We could argue. I could argue that The Notebook is in our wheelhouse.
No, no.
I
If
would.
it wasn't our wheelhouse, it's kicked out of our
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
So I said, and I'm taking full responsibility. I looked at Dirty Dancing, Steel Magnolias, and the Wheelhouse, and the Notebook, and said, Steel Magnolias has some good actors. Dirty Dancing has a good soundtrack. I see nothing enjoyable in the Notebook. It's the furthest away. We're doing that
How
one.
right you were. There is absolutely no joy in the Notebook except for Garner's performance, really.
So yeah, we pranked ourselves this April Fool's Day.
We did. Why the fuck did we do that?
No one saw it coming, and I doubt anyone will overtop it.
Yeah. What did we do?
See you next week.